I bet you I know your current headache. You love matcha, so you bought a matcha, and then you bought another one, and then you bought another one, and then you realize that you have 10 cans of matcha with the same exact expiry date coming all at the same time. I do that too. In this video, I answer 6 of the most common questions with regards to matcha shelf life. Hi, I'm Yuki, I'm the founder of Tea Life, and here we break down Japanese tea so you can become a Japanese tea expert. So first question is, does matcha actually expire? Not really. Matcha is a dried product. It has extremely low moisture. So from a food safety perspective, it doesn't really spoil in a way that fresh milk or fresh food will. So that doesn't really happen. It's not like you're gonna open the tin one day and suddenly it's dangerous. However, it doesn't mean that the matcha will stay the same. In Japan, what you usually see printed on the can is called the shoumi kigen. This is directly translated to something like the best enjoyment period or something like that. Based on the Japanese government's guidelines, it's basically the length of which the food it can be consumed in the taste that it's intended to be. So it's kind of like the best by date. So it doesn't expire per se, but there's a length of taste assurance. Question number 2 is, why is matcha's shelf life so short? Well, this is an easy one. It's because matcha is powdered. That's why. So matcha shelf life is indeed much shorter than normal loose leaf tea. So if you compare it to sencha, it could be about half the shelf life of a sencha. The reason is because for loose leaf tea, the tea leaves are in a sense intact. So the surface area, only a certain portion of it will be touching the oxygen. However, for a matcha, because they're already in small particles, it'll be exposed completely. Every single microscopic particle will be, in a sense, exposed to oxygen. And because there's so much surface exposed to the oxygen, that's why it oxidizes so much faster than normal loose leaf tea. If you can imagine like an apple, for example, if you slice an apple, perhaps it'll take a while to start turning brown, especially from the surfaces that you cut. However, think of grating an apple. Then you can see that the apple will probably turn brown extremely quickly. So the same concept here applies for matcha as well. You can think of matcha as like a grated apple. Question 3 is, what happens when the matcha goes past the shelf life? So there's some overlap with the first question. However, there's a few things that happen as the matcha expires or goes past the shelf life. The first one is the color changes. Now, fresh matcha is extremely electric, vibrant green. It's very beautiful. It's like shining almost. It's glowing, I would say. However, as it turns older, as it becomes older, the vibrancy will decrease. It will reduce and it'll gradually turn more dull. So it'll be more of a grayer shade gradually. And then eventually after that, it will start to show a little bit more of a yellowish or brownish kind of tone. Now this is basically the chlorophyll breaking down. The chlorophyll is what creates the vibrant green color in the matcha. And as it oxidizes, it will reduce. And that's why you won't see that vibrancy anymore. From my experience, if it's slight shades of gray, I think you can still drink it. There'll be some staleness, but still drinkable. Once it starts to turn like yellowish brown, it starts to get really repelling. So that would be kind of the guideline from my perspective. Now the second thing that happens is the aroma changes. So a fresh matcha would have fantastic aroma. There would be like this umami, the sweetness lift in the fragrance, right? So that would be evident when you open the can of the matcha. However, that will reduce gradually as time passes, and by the time it's end of shelf life, it'll be significantly less. And then the third thing that changes, and perhaps most importantly, obviously, is the taste. The taste significantly changes as the shelf life ends. The first thing that will disappear from the taste is probably the umami. So the umami components, the amino acids, they'll start to break down. And once that happens, the taste of the matcha will start to become more and more flat. And then gradually this staleness in the taste will start to creep up. And once that starts to get stronger, then again, it'll be a little bit difficult to drink, at least especially in its pure matcha form, because you'll have that staleness in the taste. I'm not sure. I've never actually tried drinking stale matcha in a latte form. I'm not sure if sugar and milk can coat the staleness. If anyone has actually tried, do let me know how it works. So again, as the matcha goes past the best by date, the colors reduce, the aroma reduces, and the tastes also reduce as well. Question number 4 is, what is the actual timeline or the shelf life of a normal matcha? So this depends on the state of the matcha. If you've opened the matcha, it's a little bit different from a closed and properly sealed matcha. So let's go one by one. If you haven't opened the matcha yet, it's usually between 6 to 12 months. That would be a standard shelf life for normal matcha that's properly closed. The package will say to store it in ambient conditions. However, what I do recommend for matcha especially, is to keep it in either refrigerated or freezing conditions, especially if it's not open. I think it really changes the quality as the matcha approaches its shelf life. Now, once you open the matcha can, the speed of oxidation will dramatically increase. You want to finish it as fast as possible. Usually the instructions would say 3 to 4 weeks. Once you open, 3 to 4 weeks, you want to finish it off. What I would say is that probably if you keep it in the fridge or a freezer after opening, then it would actually last longer, significantly longer than 3 to 4 weeks. I'd say a few months. Question number 5. Why is my matcha's shelf life 2 years? Now, what I'll say is that from my experience, any reputable Japanese matcha producer, their best by dates will not extend 1 year. So it's going to be between 6 to 12 months. 2 years is kind of unheard of. Now, I'm not going to say that they don't exist. Indeed, I have seen some matcha in Singapore supermarkets with a shelf life of 2 years. So I think that they do exist. I'll just say that it should at least raise a question. I'll just say that. Remember that the best by dates are more like, the quality insurance, the taste insurance date. So if you're intending the matcha to taste bad in the first place, maybe the taste insurance date can be longer as well. I don't know. Just saying. I wouldn't recommend you buying that matcha with a 2-year shelf life in the first place. Question number 6. Is there a difference in shelf life depending on the grade? I thought this was a very interesting question, actually. I had to think about this a little bit. Officially, I think there is no difference in the shelf life depending on the grade. So when I look at the matcha that we procure from Japan, if it's from the same manufacturer, whether it be a food grade or whether it be for a drinking grade, the best by dates would be the same. So if it's 6 months, it's going to be 6 months. If it's going to be 7 months, it's going to be 7 months for both grades. Now, having said that, when you think about it, the higher grade matcha depend more on the umami, the amino acids. And these are the compounds that degrade first. So in a sense, probably the taste deterioration would happen earlier with a higher grade matcha as compared to like a lower grade matcha where those aren't as present in the first place. So if you're looking at it from a very strict lens, probably what's happening is that for a higher grade matcha, they would probably deteriorate a little bit faster. But officially speaking, based on what's imprinted on the back of the packages, there are actually no differences in the shelf life between a matcha of a higher grade or a lower grade. Okay, those were the 6 common questions regarding the shelf life of matcha. Hope that was helpful. Thank you for watching. If you want to learn about Japanese green tea deeper than any other channel will teach you, then please subscribe to this channel and then also register for our free newsletter from the link below.